Well, first of all, wow, we have made it. We have had actual college football to discuss. Uh, a rather, I'm gonna call it a revenge game, but a game that certainly established a few things was played by Jackson State against uh, South Carolina State, who had put a beating on the last time I saw them, and they sort of returned the favor. We saw Notre Dame perhaps show that it's not the Notre Dame, your slightly older brother's Notre Dame, I guess. Well, a lot of other things happen. How are we doing, Brock?
I am so happy that we are finally here. For so long since last year's national championship game, we've had to live in this 7-month lull of no college football. Bill and I, whether on the show and private conversations during our draft coverage, we've had to try and dissect so much from so little to kind of fill us over until this point. And now the fact that today we have football, tomorrow we have football, we have football yesterday, we have football last week, and we're gonna have football all the way until the new year. I cannot be any more excited for this season, and I can't be any more excited to talk actual college football with the main man himself, the professor, Bill Carroll. Let's let's finally jump back into it.
Let's jump back into it. And of course, you get to do your favorite thing. I'm going to let you let loose on at least one coach. I guess one coach officially gets told that he should start looking for something else to do with his time by the end of the show. So we'll all be waiting to find out who needs to update their LinkedIn. But before we get to that, let's break down some of the games themselves. As I alluded to, a consequential HBCU game was played a couple of years ago in the Celebration Bowl. At the end of his first season, where Jackson State was just running roughshod over everything in their path, a lot of people thought that maybe this is one of the great, black college teams of all time. And then they ran into future Hall of Famer Buddy Pugh's South Carolina State team and got dominated. I mean, it wasn't like they got like eked out a win. No, SC State flat out dominated them. And then they came back the next year and lost the next Celebration Bowl. So Jackson State finally, though it's not a Celebration Bowl, finally got a little measure of revenge when they faced South Carolina State this time. Now, obviously, these aren't the same two teams. They have different. Well, one of them has different coaches or a different coaching staff and a bunch of different players. I mean, 19 players transferred out, 12 new players transferred in. I mean, a bunch of things have happened at Jackson State as they've been a feeder school almost for obviously for Colorado. But I don't know if you had a chance to check the cricket HBCU kickoff classic or whatever they call it. I don't know if you checked it out, but it was worth checking out. Particularly the coming out party for Jason Brown, who I had first run across back in his days. I mean, he's been a few different places, but I remember him being an excellent quarterback at St. Francis, was an all-conference quarterback at St. Francis. Then he transferred to Virginia Tech in South Carolina, or South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and actually had a couple of big games, a couple of important games at South Carolina. Didn't really seem to get on the field at Virginia Tech, ironically enough. Found it easier. Though people always say the SEC is, the little NFL. He found it easier to get some clock time in the SEC than in the ACC, where at Virginia Tech he couldn't really make much of an impact. But what things that sort of jumped out to you?
Yeah, no, definitely Jackson State's dominance over South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina State is a very underrated program, especially when you talk about drafting players. Of course, you all know Shaquille Leonard came from there, but they are producing at least one guy into the league virtually every single season. I believe a wide receiver, I think Shaq Davis is his name,
Yeah,
just got
Shaquan
himself a
Davis made
Shaquan
the.
Davis.
I think either the practice. I think he's on the practice squad, but
Yeah,
he's
practice
on the
squad
team.
for the Saints. So this is a well-run program, and obviously we mentioned the Celebration Bowl from 2 years ago, where they took care of business mightily. It just shows how good of a place Jackson State is, despite losing Deion Sanders as a head coach, despite losing a bunch of players, obviously to Colorado, and then also just in general. Aubrey Miller went to the draft, other guys transferred to other places, so on and so forth. I think the fact that Jackson State was able to put in such a dominant performance in the wake of all that shows how much stronger HBCUs are as a football, not conference, but just kind of like conglomerate in general. And I'm looking forward to seeing much more, success from Jackson State and just from HBCUs in general. I think it just took I think it shows that the buck does not stop with Deion Sanders, and that as long as you keep as a fan base supporting, you know, historically black colleges and universities football programs, they will continue to thrive, and we can bring back some of these traditions from yesteryear, and we can reestablish the pipeline of excellent college players becoming NFL stars.
Yeah, I
Still,
mean,
the Alcorn State jersey purple is still an iconic look. You know,
yeah,
there's a reason why Walter Payton Award is for uh, FCS conferences. There's a reason why, you know, the Raiders back in the day were so good, is because they invested their research and scouting into these programs and were able to pluck these gems. It also coincides with the fact that major colleges weren't really recruiting a bunch of black kids, especially for the South, so HBCUs was their number one option. But as previously mentioned, there's so much talent down there. Draft HBCUs, and I can't. The game is at a very healthy place right now.
right. And just to briefly mention, though a lot of people, as you said, have paid a lot of attention to certain programs, and deservingly so. I mean, Jackson State is it's tied for number, I think, 13 or something, or 12 or 13 in terms of all schools in producing Hall of Famers at the NFL level. So think about that. That whoever, Texas, Notre Dame, Arkansas, all the schools that you could ever think of, USC, UCLA, whatever, there's only been 12 that have produced more Pro Football Hall of Famers than Jackson State. Grambling has produced more Pro Football Hall of Famers than Notre Dame. I don't know if people realize just how many truly all-time greats have found their way out of the HBCUs. And while the numbers may not be what they were in the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, but you mentioned, the Buck Buchanan Award. You mentioned awards. I mean, the Buck Buchanan Award is named for, of course, Junius Buck Buchanan. Jerry Rice has an award named after him, and justifiably so. So if you look at the awards given, at the FCS level, most of them are named after guys from HBCUs. Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, Buck Buchanan. The top defensive award is named after Buck Buchanan. Top offensive award is named after Walter Payton. The top freshman award is named after Jerry Rice. So it lets you know the heights as well as the depths of the talent that come out of HBCUs. And very briefly, I mean, the Celebration Bowl has an interesting history. As we just mentioned, Jackson State played a very compelling close game against North NC Central last year. And yes, they got taken to the woodshed 31-10. And the game wasn't even as close as the final score indicated when they played South Carolina State in 2021. NC faced Alcorn in a incredible shootout, 64-44 the year prior, and then NC again over Alcorn in a more normal score, 24-22. Then NC again the year prior over Grambling, and then finally Grambling the year prior to that, 2016, beat North Carolina Central, and in the inaugural one, it was NC Rod Broadway. Speaking of underrated, Rod Broadway was an amazing coach. I don't think he gets as much credit as he deserves. But they beat Alcorn State in 2015. Largely dominated, though people usually think of the SWAC as the more talented conference. The MEAC tends to actually dominate in the Celebration Bowl. I don't know if it's the element of surprise or what, but yes, they tend to actually be the more successful conference. Well, I wanted to put a spotlight on you because Hawaii not only played a game, but played a game that I hope will establish the kind of season they're going to have, and maybe will generate more attention and more respect to the Rainbow Warriors. Tell me about that game. What stood out to you, what you noticed, and who you noticed?
Well, going back a little bit, obviously to our conversation with HBCUs, one of the things that was fantastic about it is the evolution of the game provided. We talk about Florida A&M back in the day when they would have different passing concepts. Jerry Rice went to Mississippi Valley State because they were throwing the ball, and those are the kind of things that you associate with Hawaii in this run and shoot offense. Now, the traditional run and shoot offense did not look anywhere near to what Hawaii was running last night. What Hawaii was running was a very modern offense, your 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back, which is cool. But I really would like to see the use of the slot receivers a lot more. Obviously, traditionally, the lineup is out of shotgun, trips left, trips right, or even on both ends of the one running back in the backfield. If you want to spice it up, you can run out the pistol as well. That was done in 2010 under Nick Rolovich as the offense coordinator. But from a performance standpoint, you gotta love what you saw against Vanderbilt. They went to Tennessee. They played in a stadium that's under construction against an SEC opponent that blew them out last year in the Islands. They played tough defensively. They are a much improved team than they were last year. They get into the ball. They're plugging up holes in the line of scrimmage. They're making tackles. Outside of two costly interceptions from Braden Strager, one was in the red zone. After they scored a touchdown that was called back due to holding, I believe. And then obviously at the end of the game, Hawaii played as good as you could expect them to play. Now today on Friday, they have a big matchup at home. Their home opener against Stanford. Stanford is coming off of a couple really poor seasons at the end of David Shaw's tenure. They brought in Troy Taylor from Sacramento State, so expect them to air out the ball. But if Hawaii is serious about being contenders this year, not just for a Mountain West title, but just to kind of establish themselves as a program under Timmy Chang, they're going to need to put in a really good performance. They might not necessarily need to win. I hope they win. They are the underdogs at +3, but I mean, on island, never doubt Hawaii. And keep in mind that Pac-12 opponents historically have not done well in the state of Hawaii against the University of Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Several examples are 2006 Hawaii Bowl. Hawaii won over Arizona State 41-23, I believe. In 2019, Arizona came down with Khalil Tate for the season opener. They lost. The week after that, Oregon State came to Hawaii. They lost. So, just keep that in mind. But it's a new day for the Islands, and I cannot wait to see what happens today against Stanford.
Yeah, I'll admit I was super excited when the legend Timmy Chang was returning, and I obviously I'm a little older than you. I remember, every moment of Timmy Chang's career, and he's one of those guys that, you sort of think of that list of guys, Tim Rattay and Vijay Simons at Texas Tech, guys who, if you looked at him, you wouldn't think, oh, that guy's a football player. Like that wouldn't be the first thought that went through your mind. But when you actually got on the field, wow, right? When they actually got on the field, they lit it up. But they were guys. They looked more like library media science majors than like top flight quarterbacks, if you know what I'm saying. But like his ability to see what's going on, get the ball out, and if he can teach, the things that he was taught by June Jones, I think that Hawaii will be back. Maybe not right away, but soon. I think they'll be an 8-9 win team in time. I can see that happening. One, keep the best players home. I mean, that's got to be the biggest challenge. Sort of like when Howard Schnellenberger got to Miami back in the day and said, just drew a line across like the bottom third of the state of Florida and said, we got to get all the guys from here to
this is the state of Miami, right?
The state of Miami, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much talent that's being plucked from the islands, from all these big programs: Michigan, Miami, Florida State, USC. This goes on. But there's a bunch of hidden gems that, if you look at last year's recruiting class for Hawaii and also this year's recruiting class for Hawaii, you're gonna see some dudes with some very Polynesian last names start to make a difference as well. And that's kind of the nice part. Obviously, coming off of Todd Graham's tenure, where he wanted Texas boys, which makes sense because he's a Texas guy, But now we're kind of seeing the recipe come back together of the perfect blend between mainland players, island players, and international players. And when you are able to establish that kind of camaraderie and those different influences from all over the place, a sky's the limit for this Rainbow Warriors program. The question now becomes, if Timmy Chang has a good season this year, obviously we know his allegiance to Hawaii and everything like that, but cash is king. Could we potentially see another team go after him for a promotion? Only time will tell.
If Washington struggled, Washington, um,
Yeah,
or
Washington
even
State.
or Washington State, right? I was thinking about one of those two, right? I was thinking about either Washington or Washington State, depending which one, you know, has the worst time of it. And obviously, though the offenses are not the same, and I heard people probably by accident sometimes say run and shoot when they talk about what's actually air raid and vice versa. There are some similarities, but there's one major, giant, screaming difference, and it's how much load is on the quarterback. No offense to air raid quarterbacks, but uh, they're expected to simply execute one of two things on most plays, right? It's either this or that. It's fairly binary. And oh, is it zone? This, man, that. I mean, it's sort of, count the box. Where are the safeties? That's essentially what the quarterbacks do. Count the box, locate the safeties. And, you look over there and there's Mr. Peanut, and there's a slice of pizza, and then there's a 67 Corvette and Scott Van Pelt. Oh, okay, cool. Right. And so you see that, and you know that that's what we're doing, right? In run and shoot, in many ways, it's while it is not, no one ever calls it pro style. It in terms of what it asks the quarterback to do, it's much closer to what quarterbacks do in the NFL than most pro style offenses, because nobody truly is a pro style offense, but pro influence is probably the better way to put it. But they're doing more mentally than the quarterbacks at USC, than the quarterbacks at Oklahoma, than the quarterbacks at Alabama, than the quarterbacks at Florida, than the quarterbacks at Boston College. I mean, name a place. Because you and your receivers have to read the defense live. There's nobody coming to save you. You have to see the defense the same way. And when you do, it's almost impossible to stop. When you don't, it's bad. So you have to really trust your receivers and your quarterback, because you're not telling them exactly what to do the same way that you are in, most of these sort of up-tempo spread them and shred them offenses. In fact, at some point, we'll do a comparison and contrast show about air raid versus run and shoot. It just popped into my head that we should do that at some point.
Yeah, no offense to the air raid. Actually, I take back all offense to the air raid. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to be a good quarterback in the air raid offense. I'm sorry, it isn't. And everyone wants to say, well, Pat Mahomes came for the air raid, and Baker Mayfield played the air raid, and Caleb Williams won a Heisman in there. But boo hoo, I don't care. All right. The air raid, as you said, is very binary. If it's this, it's this. If it's this, it's this. And if it's not, throw it away. Or if it's this, we'll check it to a run. Right? Which is great. It's not. I'm not criticizing the offense. It's effective for a reason. The run and shoot is the godfather to everything. Don Air Coryell, run and shoot, godfather to the modern offenses. If you look at the run and shoot, four receive up to possibly five, but typically four receivers at all times have option routes. It is the most complex, in tune, cerebral offense ever created. And I'm not just hyping this up because I grew up watching it out in Hawaii. I'm telling you, it is literally. So June Jones and Bob Davey broke it down. You can check out the YouTube clip of exactly how it works. You need to be able to not only throw with anticipation, you need to be able to anticipate route changes. You need to be able to throw balls on the dime without even having a proper second to look, because that's how quick holes opens up and closes in the offense. And the crucial part of it, you need to be able to be a legitimate gunslinger. There are so many times that you can put a quarterback in an air raid system that's not a quote unquote gunslinger and they'll have success. KJ Costello. You try and put these quarterbacks in the run and shoot offense, they're gonna throw 5 picks and like 14 yards. Like, the run and shoot is way more complex than people give it credit for, and people want to say that it's gimmicky because you don't run the football as much. which is also another lie because you can run the ball a lot out of the run and shoot. Just because you choose not to doesn't mean you can't. But that's a conversation for a different day. The run and shoot offense is incredible to watch. People need to pay much more attention to it. But once again, for this Hawaii team, this run and shoot isn't run and shoot. Run and shoot doesn't require a tight end. So on another show we'll break everything down. But what I'm curious to see with this Hawaii team is if this new style of offense that's run and shoot, but not really run and shoot, starts to fail. Could we finally go back to 4 wide, how Hawaii should be playing football?
Yeah, I get the feeling that he's trying to. It's like someone says, I've joined the Black Panther Party, but we're letting white people in and we're not going to bring guns anymore. So it
Yeah,
feels
you know
like
what that is? It's a picnic. That's what that is. All right, it's a picnic where you're dressed in all black. Like
right.
that.
So the concepts are there, but I think one is he wants to recruit tight ends. I think at some point he got exposed to the joy of tight ends and said, I like tight ends and I want them to feel welcome here or whatever it is. Those guys can just be giant slot receivers. You can call them whatever you want to call them.
You
we're
could,
gonna do.
If they were lining up in a slot, you could that, but they're right off the tackles behind. Like that's
Right.
not like. So this is probably a horrible analogy, but one day I was reading a screenplay and I needed a powerful speech, so I basically looked at every Louis Farrakhan video I could find. And there's one where he's in a chapel and he's giving his sermon. It's great. It's actually a really good sermon. And he actually says this thing about getting a lady pregnant, and then he goes like, "Whoops, there it is." And the way he delivered it, it's beautiful. And that's what coaches do. They have to deliver a great message. And in this crowd of African Americans, or even just people of African descent, there's that one white dude, and he sticks out like a sore thumb. That's the tight end in this offense. He sticks out. No one really knows why he's there. No one knows if he understands the message, but he's just around. And that's not run and shoot. And I really hope that they kind of stop being BYU for 1 second and please just put 4 wide receivers on the field. Because if you look at Hawaii's last incredible season, 2019, I think they went 10-5 that year. They had Cedric Byrd, JoJo Ward, Jason Matthew Sharsh, and Jared Smart spread across the field, and they literally got Kevin Sumlin fired pretty much. Even though Sumlin came back the next year, like Sumlin didn't really have like anything good happen after this game. Like they're the reason why Oregon State got so good because they tore their defense to shreds so much. They cooked Nahshon Wright, who's in the league now, so bad that Jonathan Smith literally like recreated his defense. Please just get rid of the tight end.
Yeah, there's something about trying to. I mean, I don't get biblical, but it is even said in the good book that like be hot or be cold, but if you be lukewarm, I'll spit you from my mouth. That you need. Who knew? Who knows what happens when we don't have a guest? But the point that we're both saying is sometimes when you try to please everybody, you try to be a little too much of this and a little too much of that, and you're not really anything. There's no there. Despite that, that's a good team, and they're going to win more games than they have in a while. Break down what you thought of Schrader. I thought for the most, and you mentioned it's sort of other things where like, other than that, Mrs. Kennedy, how did you enjoy your trip in Dallas? I get that there was admittedly, a couple of bad moments, but sort of break down his entire, in your opinion, his entire day.
Brother, Sean Clifford. It hurts so much to say it, but he's Sean Clifford. He'll go 29 for 32, but 2 of those 3 incompletions were interceptions. Like, that's the only way. He had an excellent day. He started to show the things that I've been preaching about for about 2 years now about how good this guy can be, and that in the crucial moments he throws the backbreaking interception. Now, I gotta give him some credit. It's his 3rd year at the University of Hawaii. He's had 3 different offenses. did in those 3 years. 3 different play callers in those years as well. His first year, he was in that kind of air raidy offense because it wasn't full air raid, but kind of air raid, but not really anything he described. Excuse me, under Bill Graham. And then last year he was in the new offense, but wasn't run and shoot. Like not even this era of run and shoot with Ian Shoemaker, who has now taken a step back, and now Timmy Chang is his play caller. So he's still adjusting to all the nuances and cadences of this new run and shoot offense. So I think that he played incredibly well. What I feel like he was put the game-ending interception that was on him, but the one in the end zone. I don't know why you run that play. You just got into the end zone running the football. You're able to run the football effectively against them. I think it was first down. I wanted them to run the ball again and see what they could, do. I put that play on Strager, but I also put that as much as a play caller. There's no reason to run like a post out, an outpost, if whatever you want to call it. Like there's no. It's the SEC. Even though it's Vanderbilt, these guys ain't scrubs. They run sub 4.4, sub 4.5s. They can cover ground quick. Lofting a ball into a corner where you don't have much room, so you got to put on the money. It's just not a smart decision. So I think that they clean up some of the play calling decisions. You're going to see Strager's decision making get cleaned up as well. And you're going to start to see him progress a little bit more and stop putting the ball in jeopardy like he did.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the same things you saw. I see. Am I going crazy, or did he have a game where he like went not crazy, but like made a bunch of big plays running against a good team a couple of years ago? Right? I'm not going nuts.
I don't think you are. I kind of remember this game, but it's kind of hard to think. It's kind of hard to like go back to the.
Yeah, it was. I remember it was a Power 5 program, and they seemed to be not prepared for him to run. And he broke off like three or four like 15 to 20-yard runs on them. And I thought, and they just decided not to try that much. No, okay.
Yeah, when it comes to Power 5 teams like defending against Group of 5 teams, defensive coordinators got their heads up their behind sometimes of how they think that just because they got a superior defense on paper that these guys ain't gonna come out and play. Like, if you bring the heat and there's a lane up the middle, you think the quarterback's not going to take it? It's going to take it every single time. Like, he's not going to panic and just throw the ball into coverage just because he feels a little bit. I think there's an overarching problem of coordinators underestimating their opponents time and time again. And, Strager is a dude that you need to keep an eye out for because he's going to come back without a doubt. I don't know if that's going to be to Hawaii or to another program. I think he's going to stay in the islands. But if he can start to put together in this conference season, I think he's going to generate a little bit of buzz. I think by the end of next season, he could be a bona fide day 3 pick.
Okay. Now we come to Greg and I guess by extension, Jeff Barnes' favorite segment. We have to discuss Navy Notre Dame.
There we go.
I know. It's a contractual obligation, Brock. I didn't want to do it any more than you did. And it's weird now because I really do not like that program, but I really like Marcus Freeman. I really like.
Thank you. It's it's like
my feelings are all confused.
It's like you're in high school and two chicks ask you out, and you kind of have a crush on both of them, but you can't. Say yes to both of them, but he can't say no to one of them. So you're like in this weird flux that has you playing Boys to Men at night while your parents are trying to sleep before they wake up for work at 3 a.m.
It's like your high school bully like rushes into a burning building and saves your child. Like how am I supposed to feel?
to quote Montana Tech former head coach Bob Green, it's like your mother-in-law running off the cliff in a Cadillac. You got mixed feelings.
Your brand new Cadillac. Yes.
Yeah. Mixed feelings. I love Marcus Freeman and what he has done so much. And I actually enjoy watching this Notre Dame team play football, which makes me want to vomit. But I cannot get over my hatred for the golden helmets and everything Notre Dame represents. But wow, did they put a shellacking on Navy. Woo. Outside of 2 plays, which was the Navy 4th down that the pass that was executed horribly, and letting them have a field goal at the end of the game. They were flawless. Yeah, they had a couple. I think they fumbled the ball. Oh, I think Estime fumbled the ball one time, but wow, like they put it together. But it feels like a trap game because Northwestern put it together last year in Ireland, and we all know what happened after that. So, but wow, like it felt like it honestly felt like this was Marcus Freeman's coming out party. Like
Yep.
you're in Ireland, you got the little Irish fighting boy running on the field with the shillelagh. All right, the team, was big and stocky, and like they were eating cows all summer and pumping iron and running and pumping more iron. Like they were coming out jacked, and the uniforms are clean, and the look was solid, and the defense was aggressive. And yes, they kind of messed up a couple times, but that linebacking core is incredible. The two Polynesians, Botello and Liu Fao, was just making plays all around the field. Like you feel like this is like this like they just won the national championship is how you kind of feel about this Notre Dame team. Now I'm not trying to buy too much stock in it, but they play Eddie Georgia Tennessee State, so that's another dub. They got to stack them up. They don't play Clemson or USC or Ohio State until midway through the year, so they got to have a lot of time to really fine tune some of these points of this offense. I hate to say it, and Greg is going to make fun of me for it, but this Notre Dame team is legit, and I think people need to pay attention to it.
Yeah. There's a meme, that comes from one of those Onion articles from the Onion where it says the worst person just had a great just said something. What was it? Just had a great idea or something like that. That's sort of like how it feels. Here's what I noticed: their team speed, right? The thing that for some reason Brian Kelly could never seem to quite fix. This team had speed on both sides of the ball at multiple positions. It's not like they have one or two fast guys, which used to be the kind of Notre Dame thing. Hey, look, we fixed our team speed problem. We have two guys who can fly. Look, there's Will Fuller. Oh wait, look, I've got what was the other one? Boykin. Look, there's Miles Boykin. He's big.
Yep. Oh, what was Brian Kelly on? Because his running outside of Boykin, his running backs are not. Kyron Williams was not out racing anybody.
They had a lot of guys who, for some reason, were 4 and 5 star recruits, but when you saw them physically, you were like, huh. If this guy went to North Texas, he would look right at home. Like, I never quite got how some of these guys were 4 and 5 stars because they didn't look at 4 and 5 stars I saw at LSU, which maybe that's why he went to LSU. Like, maybe that's what it's like. My 4 and 5 stars aren't the same as their 4 and 5 stars. But
is this the 2021 Texas A&M Pro Day again?
Sometimes it felt like that. So yeah, when you have as many touchdowns as you have in incompletions, yes, Sam Hartman, take a bow.
Take a bow, Sam Hartman.
Yeah, and I've been talking about Sam Hartman for a while. It's funny now he's cool. Now it's like when you start following a band where they're still playing like little bars and like all ages clubs and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden they get signed by a big label. That's how I feel about Sam Hartman right now. Now all the jocks are going to be into Sam Hartman, but
literally the difference between Sam Hartman at Wake Forest and Sam Hartman at Notre Dame is like how you felt about Fleetwood Mac before they added Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, right?
There you go.
Like they were this band that was in England with Peter Green. I mean, a little boohoo, right? But now they're selling out the Forum. Like, it is Notre Dame. Oh, I'm gonna vomit. Is Notre Dame cool again?
Oh.
Oh.
Well, okay. So let me just say this: so we don't have to stay on this much longer. I think Marcus Freeman is going to continue to make this team good for as long as he stays there. And as long as he stays there, I will be able to somewhat temper my dislike of the program. But things that other things I noticed, the team's always been physically imposing along the offensive line. That was the one thing that Brian Kelly always got right. And, they had a legendary offensive line coach, and they just pounded teams as long as there were teams that were poundable, right? As long as there were teams we could pound, we would pound them. And then the problem came when you couldn't just pound away. When you play an SEC school, you play even some of the Big 12 or even some Pac-12 teams that were physically tough enough. Big 10 teams are physically tough enough that you couldn't just basically bludgeon them. And their quarterback play in the past has been mildly controversial. So they may have unraveled that, fixed that.
That's one way to put it. I would say continuously awful is the term I would have used. But yeah, I think yours is much nicer.
I that's what I'm shooting for. Shooting for that. But if now can they develop a quarterback they can keep for multiple years? You have to go back to Ian Book since they've had someone who has developed in their program and gotten better year after year. They've had guys since then who would have these weird little, oh no, he's bad. Oh no, he's that bad. Like he'd get little flashes, little glimpses of, well, maybe he's not so. No, he's bad. And so at least, I mean, and of course, hopefully, even beyond Ian Book, but if they can find somebody who can give them at least what they have from Ian Book with the other things they've got building, they are a team that could get back to the college football playoffs. You mentioned their path to get there this year. They obviously have to beat USC, especially if they can beat them by, say, 2 scores. And then if they beat Clemson, even if it's much like 1 touchdown or, but, not fluky, as long as it's a 1 touchdown that doesn't look like just they got lucky. They'll be in the discussion because they don't really have too many other teams that should be able to really play with them. If the team we saw, if we saw what we thought we saw, I guess if the team that we thought that we did see is as good as we think it is, they could conceivably have a shot to run the table. They have 2 games they absolutely have to win. They have to win both of them because they don't play in a conference. So they've got to win those 2 games. But if they do, they'll at least be in the discussion when they start talking about especially now they're expanding the field. But even before, they might have had a shot, right, if they run the table.
I think something we also got to consider is that they play Ohio State this year. If we know anything about Ohio State, they haven't been able to play physical up front on the defense side of the ball. They also just lost Jean-Baptiste to Notre Dame as well, so that's another loss. If they can run the ball like they did against Navy, if Estime can, I mean, they have a great running back room, but Estime is stupid fast. Yep. And yes, Donovan Edwards is a much better running back, but how much faster is Donovan Edwards from Estime? If he gets that second level, he might be gone. I think we need to, obviously, we got to see how the season plays out. Things can happen, and Ohio State might be a lot better than what we've seen in past years. But I think that this Notre Dame team has a legitimate shot of knocking off the Buckeyes if they're able to run the ball effectively.
Yeah, and like I said, to me, that's the biggest difference between the Notre Dame of a couple of years ago and the Notre Dame of now is they were a team that before had a bunch of running backs that ran like 4.6, 4.7. They had tight ends that ran 4.7. They had wide receivers they'd have one really fast receiver, and then those would run 4.6, 4.7. And then they'd have, a quarterback that could move around a bit, but wasn't really a threat to really gash you in the run game. They have a powerful offensive line that was pound away, especially if you were a smaller team. And then on defense, they would have at least one really good safety, one really good corner. Not 2, though, but 1. They would have at least 1 or 2 good linebackers. They'd have 1 really good pass rusher and 1 solid but unspectacular defensive tackle. That was Notre Dame. You can sort of pencil that in for the past several years. Almost without exception, that was the kind of team they would roll out there, a team that would blow out 7 of the teams they played, struggle against 1 or 2, and then get beaten by 3. And beaten pretty solidly by the 3 that beat them. You could almost guarantee that almost every year too. But this could be different. As much as I didn't want to admit this to myself, this could be a different year for Notre Dame. Now, after all this, like they could end up getting just absolutely run by the first good team they play, and then we'll all have to, recalibrate. But I don't think that's what's going to happen, but it certainly could.
This doesn't feel like the Notre Dame teams of old where this would happen, and maybe because I have rose-colored glasses and I just love Marcus Freeman, but like this doesn't feel like a Brian Kelly. This doesn't feel like a team that would like go out and recruit Brandon Wimbush again. I know a random shot at him who's just trying to live his life, most likely as a insurance salesman. But like, this doesn't feel like the team of old for Notre Dame, and I'm very excited to see where they go from here. And if anyone would like to pluck Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame into their program so I can stop, enjoying Notre Dame football, I would greatly appreciate it. Side note, I wrote an article about 2 years ago before Freeman was announced as the head coach and he was the DC that Texas should have fired Steve Sarkisian and hired Marcus Freeman as a head coach. Only time will tell to see if I was right or if I was talking out my behind, but just keep that in mind for the record.
I will, and it'll be interesting to see, like I said, how this plays out. But I agree with you. This feels different. We also are contractually obligated to talk about USC, San Jose State,
Yes.
At least in part because that's one of the mountains that Notre Dame will have to climb if they are going to show that they're a contender. So stop me if you've heard this before about USC. They have really good skill position talent. I'm worried about their defense. Where have you heard that one before, Mark? Where have you heard that before?
Every place that Lincoln Riley has ever coached in his entire life, and maybe part of the reason why is because he still employs Alex Grinch as his defense coordinator. Now,
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch, or maybe not so mean.
You're a shitty one, Mr. Grinch, and I don't know how you keep getting jobs, because if you look at his career ever since he started Washington State, he has gotten high-profile job after high-profile job of putting in low-profile performances. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not advocating this guy be fired, but, if the glove fits, then you must acquit, and not acquit, but just quit your job, because this is not getting better. What was that? Did Chevin Cordero do anything that we haven't seen him do, like, in the history of his entire career? He's been in college this is his 6th year in college. He's done the same thing for 6 years. He just gets better at it every single year. But his better shouldn't be putting that many points on USC. Quite frankly, if Zach Brown didn't take out that kick return back for a touchdown, we could be looking at a different game, because that kind of swung the momentum back to USC, and they didn't give it up. When Lincoln Riley crossed midfield to shake Brett Brennan's hand, did he look happy? No. Did anyone look happy? No. Caleb Williams once again had to pull out a fine performance from his behind in order to save the Trojans. Now, what was that defensive front? To me, if you really want to get serious, I'm going zero coverage every day of the week. I know people are going to say, Bruck, that's stupid, or are you Wake Martindale? But if you look at the way San Jose State was gashing them, it was through the run, and it was through the read option. They could not pass the ball on them except on blown coverages, which they had a lot of for no good reason. I'm pressing everybody at the line. You got dudes at that DB position that are supposed to be high-profile recruits. Make them earn it. Put some pressure on Cordero. Get after him. I don't understand this 4-man front that they were running, which they were getting gashed off repeatedly. I don't understand anything that they're doing. They have an easy layup against Nevada, but when we start to see USC play later on the season against teams that can run the football effectively, especially in the Pac-12, there's going to be some major issues for this SC defense if they don't improve. Offensively, they were way too cute as well. And I mentioned this on the other college football show that takes place every Sunday morning here at Team MBS Media. USC was a joke offensively. Yeah, they put up that many points, but they were way too cute. They weren't establishing the run. And I get if you're trying to experiment things and see what works and what doesn't, because it's such an early game in the season. But if I'm the Trojans, get back to basics, put the ball into Austin Jones's hands, put the ball into Marshawn Lloyd's hands, let them work and allow them to open up everything else for Caleb Williams. Dorian Singer looked good. Mario Williams looked good. They got dudes. They just need to get back to the basics. That's all I'm asking for the Trojans. If they can do that, then they can get to the college football playoff. I predicted, again, they'll be the number 3 team in the college football playoff this year. That's what I had them at. And as of right now, I'm not really confident in that pick anymore. Yes, it's early, but wow, San Jose State, they exposed you, and that's not good.
The whole time I was watching the game, I was thinking, if that were Utah, they would have lost this game by about 10 points. And
easily.
They are still not they're still not built to beat Utah. The same team that has been their bête noire, their blind spot, will continue to do that to them. If they keep, that's the team if that's how they're going to play, if that's how they're going to go out and look, Utah is going to cram the ball down their throats.
Yeah.
Oh my.
You
Oh.
know, the good thing for I guess everyone is that Florida played Utah instead of USC, because had San Jose State played Utah, I think that game would have been a lot closer. And had Florida played USC, it would have been a lot worse for the Gators. Shout out real quick to one of my good friends, Jackson Danner. He's the only Florida Gator fan that's gonna have a good weekend this weekend because he's getting married. But outside of that, like Florida yesterday was awful, but Utah with a backup quarterback showed that they're not a team that can be, written off. Even without Cam Rising, I think Utah would have given USC some serious problems, and that's not. You had all off season to prepare for this, and then when it's finally time to strap up and start hitting people, you got knocked out essentially. I'm not trying to be over dramatic, but that's exactly what it was for the Trojans. I mean, shout out George Lopez because he took his boys to the game, and I hope he had a good time. But I know he was thinking to himself, "We are in trouble if this doesn't get fixed quickly."
Yeah. We will have to bring George on at some point. Maybe, when they get to, regular season, there's maybe a big game, we can bring him on to discuss. You're probably too young to remember this commercial, but about 40 years ago, a commercial that swept across America starred a 83 or something year old woman named Clara Peller, and it was a Wendy's commercial, and it would show her, opening up her hamburger from, not Wendy's basically, and she would be looking, pull down her reading glasses and stare at the patty and say, "Where's the beef?" At University of Southern California, right? This school with all the mystique and all the steeped in tradition and, all the Heisman Trophy winners, all the national championships. Why can they not get at least one or two very large, heavy people and put them on the interior of the defense? It doesn't seem that difficult to do, but they never.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't seem that difficult. Like, you go down to Oceanside, I can pick out 3 Soles on the beach that could be able to plug the middle for the Trojans, and they're like 16. Like, it's not rocket science. Like, if we were Oppenheimer and trying to build a ton of bomb, okay, we might have some difficulty. Literally, take a moped and drive around the Southern California area for a little while, and you can bring back like 15 dudes that could demolish a buffet. Like, it's not. Again, there's like 30,000 Gilbert Browns in Southern California. Get 3 of them. It's not hard. It's USC. You have monies, you have honeys, you have the beach, you have great weather. It's not rocket science. Okay, I went to USC just to check it out, and I could see all this. You run a multi-million-dollar football program. What the hell?
Sorry. Yeah, I remember thinking
what
that.
the hell?
Right. Why is Kansas State year after year stouter on their interior than USC?
Why is Felix? I can't say the A part. Uza DK. Him getting picked in the first round, and your best defender, Tuli Pelotu, got picked in the second. Like, what the hell?
Right.
What the hell?
The thing that people forget when USC was at its best is they had people like Troy Polamalu and Brian Cushing. And Brian Cushing might have been full of everything you could think of, but he played well.
Full of shit most of the time. Well, but yeah, he definitely. I mean,
more of experimental pharmaceuticals.
Oh, you mean Bill Romanowski Jr., Brian Cushing?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, baby Romanowski. Yeah, and then you had Lofa Tatupu. You had
Keith Rivers.
Keith Rivers, thank you.
They had a really nice bunch of. Obviously, Clay Matthews. They had a bunch of really good defenders, and they didn't have to win every game in a shootout. And we keep hearing that this is the year they fix the defense. Oh yeah, this is the year. This year they haven't fixed it yet. I watched that game very closely, and I can tell you they have not fixed their defense. And I keep thinking about, man, when they face, I mean, we mentioned Utah, when they face, Oregon, when they face, I mean, there's teams that are going to be salivating at the thought of facing that defense. And it's not a talent issue, but as you said, there's some schematic issues. And then there's just some, I mean, size matters. You can recruit anybody to USC. You can't get me one 340-pounder. You can't find one. It just pointed out.
One. It's not as for as much lard that gets eaten in Southern California. You cannot find one big boy. Come on. So when Stuart Cravens was at USC, he said that as a true freshman, they basically put him through the ringer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that turned him into an absolute animal. Where are the dudes on the team? Where are the dogs? Where's the guys that's going to get stuff done?
Yep.
Can we where are they?
Yep.
Everyone said that they're going to work on this defense, right? USC worked on this defense as much as my grandfather worked on his marriage, aka he didn't.
Oh.
They didn't. And you know what happened? He got divorced. And then you know what happened? He died alone, right? That might be over dramatic, but that's what's going to happen to Alex Grinch. He didn't face his defense. Now he's going to die alone. Jesus.
Okay.
Not that part. Good Lord, Bill. No, I'm not that cynical.
I thought the show took a dark turn.
No, it's his marriage with USC. This defense doesn't get fixed. Lincoln Riley's not going to get fired. He just signed a 10-year, $100 million deal. You know who's going to get the axe?
Yep.
You, old boy. And where are you going to go? Who's going to want you after? Who? You didn't get it done at Washington State. You didn't get it done at Oklahoma.
Yep.
You didn't get it done at USC. Who's going to be baby mama number 4? All right. First of all, if you know Eddie, we all have cousins and we all have siblings. I don't know about you and the Carroll family, but I know that for my family, there is a couple dudes that got multiple baby mamas. And trust me, when you start digging into the 4, 5, and 6s, the quality of mom is not high. Okay, it is in the toilet. Just that the quality of jobs that you're gonna get as a DC at style 4, 5, and 6 is not going to be great. Okay, baby mama number 1 is great. Baby mama number 2 is great. Baby number 3 is like barely above average, but if this is the acceptable line, she here. All right, this is where you are right now. As soon as you get to number 4, it's here, and then 5, 6, 7. If you get to 8, you got Uncle Sanford, R.I.P. But that was him. All right, 8 and 9 were not happening. Okay, yeah, and. First of all, I mean, it doesn't help when you have kids at 78 and 80, but that's again a different story. Like, now where do you go? Where do you go from here?
Well, to paraphrase Adam Silver, you better learn to speak Tulsa, buddy.
Yeah,
you better learn to speak Tulsa.
You better learn to speak Uzbekistani because that's exactly where your next job is. Think about it. Think about it from the baby mama chart. All right, what educated, hardworking, knowing her self-worth lady is going to subject herself to someone that has 7 kids from 4 other ladies? No one. No. What kind of job is going to give themselves you an opportunity to run their defense, knowing that we saw what you did on national? No. You better learn. First of all, you better learn to be Zach Hill and coach high school because first of all, Texas is having a lot of money to coach high school, so your family gonna be okay. But in terms of job prestige, brother man, 4th baby mama, it's not a good role. That's all I'm gonna say. And if you're able to get a good one on number 4, God bless you. But that's a unicorn.
So at some point in every show, I'm forced to give a disclaimer. I guess we've come to that point in the show. I would just like to mention that the words, the views, the thought processes, and the philosophies of one Brock Viera are his and his alone, and do not in any way represent either the brand identity of Team MBS our personal philosophy, my personal philosophy, or the views or thoughts of the organization. But I would like to say that he ain't wrong. So moving on. We do have a couple of more games we can
Yeah,
touch
you know. Baby mama number one show up to the family function, to the cookout, to the potluck with something delicious, homemade, filled with love and possibly a lot of sugar and a lot, possibly MSG. All right, and we all love her for it. She's a member of the family. She's the one we send the Christmas card to. All right, we don't even bother with the dad, because, even though we're related to him. All right, yeah, especially if we want to see the kids. All right, we got to go out. We guys got to make it happen ourselves. You know who's going to shut it down? Baby mama number 4. All right. First of all, she going to bring a half-baked can of cinnamon rolls to a lunchtime event. All right. And then she's going to let her little kids run wild with no discipline. Okay. She's not going to enforce anything. One is going to get into the desserts way too quickly, and we all know it. All right. They are a nuisance. That's why they don't get the good Christmas gifts. They don't get the good toys. That's Alex Grinch. He's not going to get the good recruits. He's not going to get the good facilities. He's not even going to get the good paycheck if he keeps it up like this. All right. Do not let yourself be the man that has 4 baby mamas, or 5, or 6, or like Uncle 8. All right. Because it is not a good look. Side disclaimer, at my uncle's funeral, all right, there was like 8 different women that showed up wearing all black. And the family all kind of had to look at each other. I was like, who that? All right. It was like trying to play a game of Clue at someone's funeral. It's really weird and kind of funny, but also really weird. Really weird. How are 8 of you mourning this dude? 7 of you should hate him. Don't be that. Don't be that.
There's more football games to discuss also. But there was for those who are fans, as I am, of the FCS, there were a couple of really compelling FCS games played, including one where one of those players I kind of circle, like I'll be coming back to you, like I'll have my eye on you from this point forward. Roy Alexander of Albany showed up and pulled a Percy Harvin a little bit. He had 6 catches for 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not bad. It's not a bad day at the office. He had 3 kick returns for 89 yards. That's pretty good. And even, including a 44-yarder to set them up for another score. He also had a carry for 4 yards. 151 total yards on 9 touches. He should get more touches. Shout out to Roy Alexander. But whoever's if you're coaching Albany, yeah, I'd get that dude a couple more touches. Yeah, I mean, he's like he's gonna get you 16 or so yards a pop. Let's get him some balls.
First class analysis from our dear Professor Bill Kerr.
I mean, no offense to the other guys who play for the Great Danes, which is one of my favorite mascot names, the Great Danes of Albany, but none of them looked like him. Roy Alexander, the only guy that resembled Roy Alexander I saw that day.
Listen, I get it. On my grandmother's grandchildren scale, I know who I am, and I ain't no Royal Alexander. All right, you gotta know your role. Yeah, I'm like number 8 on the depth chart of grandchildren. If you got the number 1 grandchild, you gotta feed it. You have to feed the one at the top. That's just unfortunately how it goes. Not everyone gets to have the ball. Not everyone gets to have the large portion of the inheritance. That's just it's life, people. We're not trying to make fun of anybody else on the Albany football team. When you got a guy like that, don't fix what's not broken.
Right, exactly. I'm learning so much about your family dynamics on this particular show.
Oh, it's gonna be crazy. Like people are gonna get houses, and I might get like a, jewelry box. Not jewelry, the box that I made for her in 3rd grade. So love you, Grandma. If you feel like giving away one of your 13 houses, I'm around. Just want to throw that out there.
13. Okay, well, Brock and I are going to do a second show after this show that has nothing to do with football. But But let me get back to football.
She has a lot of houses.
Yeah, I'm beginning to
A lot, and I live in my apartment.
Well, that tells us everything we need to know. Okay, so
Love you, grandma. She makes a great apple pie, by the way.
oh,
Just like she puts the crumbs on top like a Dutch style.
oh yeah.
Fresh out the oven. She puts some cold vanilla ice cream. On the islands, we have this kind of sweet dessert called halpia. Hers is to die for. It's kind of like this wet cube thing that's like has the texture of like Jello, but it's a little bit harder. You just eat it, and then it just, oh my goodness, she makes it phenomenal. She just 80, I think she's 82 right now. Yeah, she just turned 82, or she's about to turn 82. Yeah, she's still making it. Shout out grandma. Also, she makes really good omelets. Just side note. Also, really good chicken katsu. Also, really good steak. So if you're ever hungry, come down to my grandma's house.
All right. Once again, I'm getting lots of wonderful nuggets, and I really feel like I'm really learning a lot about your family dynamics.
It's a good one. That's all I can say.
And while I don't have any delicious recipes to impart yet, I do want to say I saw a delicious performance once again from an Albany player, this time on the other side of the ball. So when I was watching this game, I was mostly watching, offense, but they had one defensive player. And I'm going to take a shot at his name because I'm not afraid. Remember
in Bill Carroll's best Jeff Barnes impression.
Well, no, I'm not going to. I promise I'll do better than Jeff Barnes. But based on what I know of, Central Europe, I'm going to say his first name is easy. Well, Lord. His first name is Anton. His last name is probably pronounced Juncaj, right? So it's Juncaj, which is usually pronounced the J is probably pronounced like a Y, like you, and then the rest is probably Juncaj, I'm guessing. However, if you are whatever he is and you want to correct me, I'm here for it. But he had quite a day.
If you are whatever he is.
Who knew that this show would turn out this way, right? I guess the guest must act as sort of a thing that sort of evens the show out. And when you have a guest, this is what we have.
We need a guest as much as my cousin's 8th baby mama needs a babysitter. Like that is, if you are whatever he is.
I'm sure I could figure it out. I could probably write it down. I mean, maybe Estonian, maybe, I don't know.
For everyone watching, the views and comments of Bill Carroll do not reflect the College Football Forecast, Team MBS Media, myself, or anyone associated with any of the three.
Right. So I'll do a little more research. I'm thinking maybe Estonian, maybe Albanian. But let's get back to his performance. He's 6'3", 273 pounds, and has a little Kyle Vanden Bosch to him in the way he plays. He had 5 tackles. 4 of them were solos. Those 4 solos were all sacks. Fordham's quarterback is going to see Mr. Anton Juncaj, I think, in his absolute nightmares. They had no answer for him. None whatsoever. And I'm going to give a little sneak preview of our upcoming Nutties. I feel pretty good about him walking away with one of our awards because he was just unblockable. Even on some of the plays we didn't manage to actually hit the quarterback, he was near the quarterback a lot, in the backfield a lot. And if he plays like this, I mean, I'm expecting 4 sacks a week, but if he keeps playing like this, the aforementioned Buck Buchanan Award may end up in his hot little hands. Just had a great day at the office. There were a few other players that.
So big, Caucasian, and aggressive. Sounds like the 6th baby mama.
Yes. Well, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to mention
at the Chili's, she could put it away.
I do want to mention.
She took some of my ribs.
Since we talked about, hopefully you mean like pork ribs and not yours. But
yeah, no, of course pork ribs.
But getting back to Hawaii, Isaiah Tafaga had a really good game. I want to make sure that he gets a little bit of a shout out from us. He had 8 total tackles. 2 of those were sacks, and Vandy he had 3 total tackles for loss. Vandy struggled with him, and while he's a bit undersized, he really, really was active. He dropped in the coverage sometimes too. That seems almost like a waste. But I mean, he's a good all-around player. I don't know how much you knew about him. I sort of was educating myself on him throughout the game. Do you know much about Mr. Tafaga?
Yeah, Isaiah Tafunga, he's guy's coming back. He kind of is what is the right word? I can't remember. I can't think of the word. Basically, he's like part of the new core of Hawaii linebackers that are coming out that people are really excited about in the wake of the losses of Corey Bethby and Darius Muasau. Him, Wyndon Ho'ohuli, and company, guys that had some problem. Even if you go back to last year, Panay Pavihi, guys that had tremendous issues tackling and understanding their angles and things in space. And to see him take such a leap up this year is very impressive. What I really like about him is that he's great at wrapping people up. Like, it is disturbing how good he's gotten at it. He can get, what's the right word, faked out at moments, but to me, if you wanna label him, he is see ball, get ball kind of player.
Yeah.
And he is the perfect, if you talk about the next level, special teamer, like he is a guy that will wallop somebody with no concern for his own bodily function or harm. So that's how I feel about Isaiah Tafunga.
Yeah. No,
also stop putting him in coverage.
Yeah.
Stop it. He's not. He doesn't understand zones. He understands hitting people. Let violent people be violent. Sorry.
Yes, there we go. I was trying to be a little more measured in what I said, but yeah, I thought dropping him in coverage, like I said, was a bit of a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, it's like when Aaron Campman became an outside linebacker. Why is brother man backstepping? He is an attacker. He is a lion. He's a dog on the chain looking to grab the bone. Let him go.
Yeah, no, I was impressed by him. I thought he was the most impressive of the defensive players I saw from the Rainbow Warriors. And there were a couple of sort of I'm going to say surprises. I mean, for those who had lost track of Coach Rich Rodriguez, he's been guiding the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State from their days they've been in the Ohio Valley Conference as well as some other conference in the FCS. Before that, not the Southern, not the SoCon. I can't. Well, they've been in a couple of different conferences in FCS, and were very good. They looked really good in they're making the move to the FBS, and they put a pretty solid. Well, I'm gonna say, I mean, it was a close game back and forth, but they looked like the better team against UTEP, and UTEP's not bad. UTEP's a borderline like bowl eligible kind of team. They might get to bowl eligibility in the Conference USA. And the Gamecocks are not eligible to play for the Conference USA Championship. They're in their transition year, we would call it. But I could see them winning 6 or 7
stupid,
games.
by the way.
I know. But I could see them winning 6 or 7 games as they're making their transition from FCS to FBS. And a team that, I'll be honest, I previously had nominated for relegation from FBS to FCS. The Minutemen of UMass got, first of all, a win, period, is kind of news. I mean, they don't win a lot of games, but they won against admittedly, New Mexico State is not a great program, but they got some takeaways, right? They were +3 in the turnover margin, which I think they'll need to win games. And they converted 2 of those into touchdowns, including a pick 6 on a 55-yard interception return. So UMass, which, I'm not the only person who said might be the worst FBS college football program. Now they have to face the Auburn Tigers, but they at least come in there feeling good about themselves. So, good luck to the Minutemen, and then they get Miami, Ohio after that, and then Eastern Michigan. So I always thought UMass was a weird fit for the MAC anyway. I always thought they were a better fit for, I don't know where. I guess I have to think about where they'd be a better fit for. But they always felt strange to me in that particular conference. But they got to win, right? And wins sometimes are hard for them to find. But yeah, I don't know if you checked either of those games out.
Yeah, I was able to watch a portion of the New Mexico State and UMass game. New Mexico State really shot themselves in the foot early with that tip ball that was intercepted by UMass and really never
Yep.
recovered from that point. I mean, the quarterback that see, I'm about to pull a Jeff Barnes. Somebody gave me the towel because I almost started sweating. Tommy, I can't say his name, so I'm not going to try to. The UMass quarterback is a guy that has been around for a while. I believe he started his career at Clemson. I think
Fomashans.
Yeah, I believe so. Don't quote me on this, but I believe he began his career at Clemson. I think he somehow ended at UMass for a second, unless I was a different guy. He's just kind of been all around, and for Don Brown to get a win in week one, it's just I like Don Brown, even though it didn't really work out at Michigan. Like he is a genuinely good dude and a good coach, and especially as he enters the latter years of just life in general. As I think he's about to be 70, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's good to see him smile again. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, and thank you for not assigning him to die alone.
I did not assign anyone to die alone. Oh, the only person that died alone was my uncle, and he kind of deserved it. He was not a good guy.
Ah, got it.
I mean, he wasn't a bad dude. I mean, as long as you don't count being neglectful to your children. But sorry, did that take a turn? That's the thing that took a turn. He had 8 baby mamas. It's a numbers game.
Oh.
8.
8's a lot.
Honestly, it's kind of impressive that you were able to get past 5 at that point. Honestly, like if there's a Hall of Fame for just making children, like he should be like first ballot inducted. Like they should create a lifetime legacy award for him. Like you had 8 different women who all hated you at one point in life, weeping for you. Like that is impressive, right? Are you striving for something now, Bill?
No. I mean that's not a goal. No, I'm just thinking about what you said.
It's crazy to think about, isn't it?
It's a challenge just to wrap your head around it. Yes. So
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. 8.
Yeah. So back to Tyson Fumacha. Back to Tyson Fumacha, who I believe actually started at Georgia Tech. I believe was where his career actually began. I think, but
you know what I just realized? Mel Tucker low-key looks like Vig Rhames. Sorry, Michigan State's about to play Central Michigan. I just realized that. Like, but not like Vig Rhames like in real life, but like Vig Rhames and Lilo and Stitch as the signet agent.
Okay. Well, Tyson Fumacha had a very interesting game in that he's not the world's greatest passer. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but he was effective. He had a rushing touchdown.
So who are we talking about now?
Oh God.
I saw Mel Tucker serious, and I just thought he is seriously wasting $100 million from Michigan State.
Tyson Fumacha, who had a very interesting day at the office versus New Mexico State. Now, he wasn't the world's greatest passer, but he was effective and reasonably efficient. He had 96 yards rushing on 26 attempts. Now, it was really more than that, but in college, they count sack yardage against your rushing total. So, he was actually over 100 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. He also had, even though he wasn't amazing as a passer, he had one really nice deep ball that was probably, a game-changing event. But 192 yards passing, 10 of 17, right? For him, that's not bad.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, 192 yards. So
I mean, it might be better than Noah Kim, who's about to start for Michigan State today against it. Who is Noah Kim? That also shout out to the injection of a lot more Asian quarterbacks in
There we
college football.
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it should have been me had I not been born with the genetics of a donkey. But you know, like I can't throw a ball. Like if a ball has to go 12 yards, good luck. If I'm your quarterback, I'm throwing screen passes and handing the ball off. I'm Art Schillinger from Ohio State. Is the best way.
Well, at least it was actually good. He just had a real serious gambling problem, but
That's another reason why I'm like him. But
oh, oh, oh boy, this is going to be our most okay. I'm glad you asked me about Noah Kemp, and he's an interesting story. He's a fourth-year sophomore, a term you'll hear more and more recently. But yeah, he's
we gotta stop using the term sophomores, freshmen, juniors. That it doesn't like make sense. He's a ninth year senior. No, he's a 30-year-old. Like let's not mince. Oh, he's a freshman. He's 35. Oh, he's a freshman punter. He's 35. He owns a tattoo shop in Indonesia. He has 3 kids and a grandbaby on the way. Wait, what do you mean he's a freshman? Like, so this is getting a little bit out of hand. That's all I'm gonna say.
both of
Just like my uncle with baby mamas. It just
yeah.
When it gets to a point where you're not surprised at a pregnancy announcement anymore, you got to start reevaluating some things internally.
So, for those who are still wondering about Mr. Noah Kim, he's a Virginia native. So I've known about him.
Shout out Virginia.
But he's from the northern part of the state. But that's fine anyway. He, was a scout team guy basically for 2 years because of COVID-19. So he had a redshirt freshman, 2 redshirt freshman seasons, sort of, kind of. And then last year, he played in 4 games, only about 38 total snaps, but 14 of 19 as a passer, 3 touchdowns, including his best day was against, of all things, Ohio State. He was 6 of 10 for 82 yards passing, including a 25-yard touchdown pass. So he's played a little bit. Had a decent amount of game action also against Minnesota, 6 of 7, 70 yards. Once again, a 27-yard TD. So he went into it. It was an open competition. They had no idea who the quarterback was going to be. The word I'm looking for is slender. I was surprised when I saw how much he weighed. They have a very good strength and conditioning program. He's nowhere close to 200 pounds. I think he's listed at 185. He may be 177. So I would like to see what's going on with that. But he is once again, I hate to be stereotypical, but he's highly intelligent. He understands football at a high level. But it's true. I know it's funny, but it's true. He is. He's a good athlete, though. He's also a very good athlete. He's a very good basketball player.
I heard he has ambitions of being a doctor after his football career ends.
He's got good mobility. He's got a live arm, not a cannon, but a live arm. He's good to about 40, 45, 50, 55 even yards and through the air. He can get there with a little bit of steam on it.
He's a student of the game. He's a hard nosed kind of player. He's the type of guy you could bring home to your daughter and feel comfortable with. He's the type of guy that you would introduce to your family. He's the type of guy that you could see be a corporate guy after football ends. He's the type of guy that eats, sleeps, and breathes football, but football isn't everything. You know what I mean? This guy you're not gonna have any off the field concerns about.
Well, he is. If he actually, his future is in advertising management. In case you're wondering, but
so we got Asian Don Draper, perfect.
But we're going to get to see exactly what he is. He's played sparingly, but he's looked good in the times that he's played. He navigates the pocket fairly well. He seemed reasonably poised. Now, obviously, he's playing sort of garbage time minutes, so it's not like it's been highly charged moments, but I like what little I saw of him. So I'll be watching him, if nothing else, to sort of build out that dossier, get a better sense of who he is. So we can look forward. We looked back. Week 1. Which games do you want to watch and why?
Penn State, West Virginia. I think it's going to be a very telling team of two different storylines. West Virginia, Neil Brown is clearly on the hottest of hot seats. Probably the new AD definitely wants to clear house, especially after the whole Bob Huggins scandal when it comes to college basketball. Neil Brown, from every press conference, basically said the equivalent of F it. I do what I like, because he really has nothing to lose. For Penn State, they have one of the more talented offenses in the country. Obviously, we know about Drew Aller, Singleton, and Allen in the backfield, and just the program that James Franklin is running in general. And if Penn State is legitimate this year in terms of their aspirations for the college football playoff, I think that this Week 1 matchup is going to be a good tone setter to see where they're at, especially since they have to play at Michigan at home and then have to go to the horseshoe for Ohio State. So that's one of the games that I'm highlighting for sure. Hawaii versus Stanford, for reasons I've already said already, so I'm not going to go through that again. I really want to see. Oh shoot! What is the matchup? Let me take the opportunity to pull it up.
Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to mention that on the prospect front, you mentioned some guys are really good, but maybe a guy has a chance to maybe be the first corner off the board. Penn State has always done a decent job of developing defensive backs. And if indeed they have another guy go early in the draft, it could be the other corner. The one that was sort of the number 2 corner when Joey Porter was the number 1 is now the number 1. And I'll be interested to see, excuse me, I'm interested to see a couple things about how that team looks. Also, they have Olu Fanashu, who has the chance to be the first offensive tackle off the board. So they've got at least 2 players that some people have in the top 20, 25, sometimes even 15 on their, way too early because nothing's happened yet rankings. So I'll be interested to see. Excuse me. I'll be interested to see if indeed these players live up to their their rankings, their hype. Live up to the hype, because Penn State has certainly put a lot of talent in the field before, and sometimes that talent hasn't always maximized, worked out, whatever term you want to use. But this year feels different to me. And Kalen King is from that powerhouse Cass Tech. And to this day, a lot of Michigan fans are a little salty that he got away. And then Johnny Dixon, who's from Chamberlain High School by way of University of South Carolina, is another guy that has a chance to be pretty good at the corner spot for them. So now I'm going to kick it back to you. Tell me about what games you want to watch and why.
Thank you. Going back, we'll start out with North Carolina, South Carolina. Drake May. We're kind of excited to see how he develops with Mac Brown, and obviously the Tar Heels in recent years have become an NFL factory, especially from the offensive side of the football. They did lose Tony Grimes, the cornerback, to Texas A&M, so defensively I have some major questions about them. South Carolina looking for redemption after a pretty bad end to last year with their loss against Notre Dame. Spencer Rattler is another storyline to keep in mind. Houston at UTSA at Houston. Houston is wearing these beautiful Oiler-inspired jerseys that I need to get my hands on. UTSA brings back Frank Harris and also the running back whose name, I think McKinsley is his last name. I could be wrong. Let me look it up real quick. But basically, he was Conference USA Freshman of the Year. He ran over 1,000 yards. He is an absolute animal. Kavorian Barnes, sorry, is his name. So he's another guy I'll keep an eye out for. UTSA is also playing without Zakari Franklin, who transferred to Ole Miss. Great wide receiver. We wish him the best down in Oxford. Looking forward to see how he develops in that Lane Kiffin offense. Another game that I'm a really big fan of is California at North Texas. A lot of people don't really care about the Cal program. I'm not one of those people. Shout out Zinni, 62 Media. He's a big Cal guy. But I love Cal football. I love Jaden Ott, the running back. I think they got some interesting pieces. They bring back Jake Spitball out of Texas State to be the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator for the Golden Bears during Sonny Dykes' tenure with Cal. They bring in Sam Jackson, the fifth, out of TCU to be the quarterback. He's a dual threat guy. Very excited to see if they're able to keep Justin Wilcox at Berkeley for one more year. Washington State at Colorado State, two offenses that are going to throw the ball a lot. Washington State, Cam Ward, as previously mentioned. They haven't played up to expectations, but they did bring in some interesting transfers, kind of headlined by Kyle Williams out of UNLV, and also a couple other skill guys I think could be impressive, especially they're trying to make up for the loss of Deshaun Stribling, who went to Oklahoma State. For Colorado State, this is the second year of the air raid offense under offensive coordinator Matt Mumme, of course, son of Hal Mumme, and head coach Jay Norvell, who's one of the highest paid coaches in the Mountain West. Part of the reason was to get Colorado State up to standard again. They have a beautiful facility. They play in a beautiful place out of Fort Collins. I think that this could be the year that we could see Colorado State make a run at the Mountain West title. Fresno State goes to Purdue, early morning game. Jeff Tedford against Purdue, who's obviously the new coach, and Ryan Walters, I believe is his last name, obviously former DC from Illinois, helped send Devon Witherspoon, Sidney Brown, and Jatavius Martin to the league. So that's gonna be a really interesting thing to see how they all kind of match up. And the last game I want to touch on before I swing this back to you has to be Sam Houston and BYU. I thought people were was gonna say Coastal Carolina at UCLA, but with the losses of both Grayson McCall and also Jamie Chadwell to Liberty, I'm not sure what this Coastal Carolina team is gonna look like. But what I do know is that Sam Houston is taking the jump up from FCS. They are a team that likes to throw the ball around a lot. BYU does the same. They have Keaton Slovis. I think if you're looking for a game that's going to be really exciting to watch, especially since it's going to be played at night, that's a game. And I just also want to shout out Texas State at Baylor. Baylor should win this one comfortably, but J.J. Kinney takes over for the Texas State program from Jake Spitball. Last year with Incarnate Ward, we saw him light it up with Lindsey Scott Jr. So looking to see his offense once again here at the FBS level. He was the offense coordinator for Hawaii when they beat Houston in the 2020 New Mexico Bowl. He was the offensive coordinator with UCF during Gus Malzahn's first year. And obviously now he has this opportunity back at the FBS level with Texas State. Of course, Baylor had a really down year last year, but don't be mistaken. They have some really good players on the Baylor Bears team, especially on that defense. So look for Dave Aranda and the Bears to be bowling in 2023. Those are my favorite matchups for this week one of college football.
Yeah. All those games you mentioned are games that are intriguing to me. As we speak, the Bison, shout out to Steve White, who is one of the best at what he does, but also a really, really, really decent person. Genuine, decent.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to Steve White and the HU Bison. They are right now down 16 points to the Eastern Michigan Eagles, 16 zip. But I'm sure they're in there cutting and scratching and fighting with everything they've got. But the rest of the MEAC schedule is intriguing to me because a lot of what used to be sort of season-ending matchups are happening week one. One of those big rivalry games is Virginia State versus Norfolk State. Now, I must admit my in total complete bias. I went to Norfolk State, and Virginia State. My dad used to describe it this way: was the dog, and then Norfolk State was the tail. But eventually, the tail began to wag the dog. At some point, Norfolk State became the larger and more well-known, even though it was an offshoot at one point of Virginia State. Bowie State's playing Delaware State. Once again, a sort of regional rivalry. Delaware's in Delaware and Bowie State's in Maryland, but their recruiting footprints overlap tremendously. Winston-Salem State's playing NC Central, another very, very regional rivalry. Those two teams, just plain don't like each other, as people love to say. South Carolina State is playing out of conference, in fact, playing out of FCS as they're playing the 49ers of Charlotte, which should be a very challenging game after they just, came off of a pretty serious, they got beat up pretty good, and now they're, have to take on, Charlotte. That'll be an interesting game for them. But we didn't talk about this game yet, but Arizona State narrowly escaped Southern Utah, right? So the Thunderbirds, once again, one of the coolest of all the college mascots slash nicknames, uh, showed me something. Either Arizona State is not as good as I thought that might be, or Southern Utah is going to be trouble. So we didn't talk about that game, but we'll talk about Southern Utah in the future, I promise. Duquesne is playing Edinboro. So for those that are into PSAC football, that part of the country, there's a lot of really good football played in the state of Pennsylvania, and of course, Western Pennsylvania particularly. Villanova is playing Lehigh. That'll be an interesting game. Villanova is usually very, very good. They probably will win that game fairly handily, but Lehigh very often is scrappy and tough. And I think they're the Mountain Hawks. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, I think they are the Mountain Hawks. Another one of the more interesting nicknames and slash mascots in all of football. Missouri State's playing Kansas, another FBS FCS clash. Kansas, if they are for real, that should not be particularly close. Arkansas is playing sort of a warm-up game a little bit against Western Carolina, the Catamounts. Marist is playing Georgetown, so that should be evenly matched. The Dayton Flyers of the Pioneer League take on Illinois State of the Missouri Valley Conference. Illinois State should be physically dominant there. Robert Morris College is going up against Air Force. But the ones that I'm obviously focusing on, Davidson VMI is another one of those sort of sneaky rivalries. Like those teams, once again, two teams compete against each other for players. They are not too far apart from each other in the state of, one's in Virginia, one's in North Carolina, but not too far apart from each other. New Hampshire's playing Stonehill, a couple of teams that used to at one point share a conference but don't anymore. Stonehill, I believe, is in the Big South, which doesn't sound right because they're not in the South, but they've been in the NEC also in the past. And then, of course, New Hampshire's in the CAA, but if you go back far enough, they used to play each other every year. East Tennessee State, which, first of all, Buccaneers, welcome back. They shut down their football program for a while back in the 90s, brought it back a couple of years ago. They're going to probably be hammered by Jacksonville State based on what I saw. They're not a bad program, but Jacksonville State looked really, really tough. Montana plays Butler. Montana is really, really good, and they're probably a team that's going to make it deep in the FCS playoffs. Butler is scrappy, and they'll play hard. Just mention a couple more. Holy Cross and Merrimack. That's an interesting game. Holy Cross is a program that was good for a long time, then bad for a little while. Now it's good again. I'll be interested to see how they look against Merrimack. Merrimack is a program that has put a couple guys in the NFL, including Joe Boyle. You may remember Tim.
Oh, Tim Boyle.
Yeah, sorry, back up to at one point to Aaron Charles Rogers. Mercer goes against Mississippi. That shouldn't be too tough for Mississippi. And I'll mention the last four I'm going to mention. Portland State going up in weight class against Oregon. If they even can sort of hang around, that'll be good for them. Once again, another regional rivalry, but between FCS and FCS is Towson State, another Maryland school against University of Maryland. And then Grambling plays Howard. Once again, Howard's no longer in the MEAC, but Howard is now in the in fact, they've changed conferences a couple of times. They're in the Big South for a hot second. They left the Big South. But either way, Hampton is an interesting program. It'll be a measuring stick game for both programs. Grambling should be the better team, but we'll find out. And then last, but certainly not least, this game feels like it should happen in the FCS playoffs. Eastern Washington goes against North Dakota State. Eastern Washington almost always has a couple of good transfers from places like Boise, University of Washington, Washington State. And even when they don't get a bunch of transfers, they usually have really good quarterbacks and wide receivers. There's a couple of their wide receivers who are on NFL rosters now, at least as practice squad, if not on 53-man rosters. And then North Dakota State's North Dakota State. Sort of like the Alabama of, or Georgia, if you prefer, of the FCS. Big on both lines, enough speed. Christian Watson was a blazer, but usually they have, enough speed. They don't even have a guy as fast as him usually, but the quarterback play is the determinant for whether they are a true contender. They obviously got humbled a little bit. So if their quarterback play can go back to where it was when they're at their very, very best, they have a chance once again to be they're always going to be a contender, let me ask. But they have a chance to go back to winning the FCS championship. Being a contender is not at all the goal at North Dakota State. But yeah, that was the game. So I'll be watching some live and recording the others because I'm a sicko.
Yeah, it's disturbing how much football we consume on a weekly basis. It's not natural, but goodness, we love it. And it's a lot better than some of the other voices that people have.
There you have it.
That's the only way to put it.
Right. Yes. This seems like a good place to dismount the show. So
yeah, I concur. I think there's not much more our viewers can digest after this.
I feel like if the more we say, the worse it'll probably get. So I do want to first of all thank your family for providing us with a good 20 minutes of very riveting content. I feel like I don't know if there's like a Polynesian version of Tyler Perry, but if there is, he will want to talk to you at some point. We had truly an interesting show. We will have a guest next week, so I'm going to let you know more when I know more, but I'm working on a couple of things. And if you know of somebody, of course, that's always encouraged as well. This is a joy, a privilege, and a pleasure. I enjoy this so much. It is truly one of the things that I look forward to doing every week because, well, it's college football, and I love it. So once again, on behalf of the babyface assassin himself, Brock Vieira, I'm Bill Carroll for Team MBS, and I just urge you to, hey, watch more college football and ask Brock about his family if you meet him somewhere, because it sounds like there's some really fascinating stuff to be had there. We will do this again. Yep.
Yeah, feel free to ask, especially if you're a therapist.
There you go. We will do this again in 1 week.